It's very curious that the development of Vegeta from Dragon Ball compared to the development of Bakugo from My Hero Academia both have a rivalry, with their protagonists so proud, arrogant, but the retention development, one is loved and the other hated. Today I will explain why this is, but tell me, who is your favorite proud character? Comment without fear. The evolution of Vegeta'S character is one of the main reasons why he has won the affection of many people, due to how interesting and profound his change is throughout Dragon Ball. Here's I explain his evolution at different moments. Vegeta first appears as a villain in the Saiyan Saga. He is a very proud prince of that race, a race almost exterminated, which fills him with desires for revenge and the urge to become more powerful. In this stage, he is cruel, ruthless, and doesn't care about destroying planets or killing those who cross his path. He is very arrogant and his only goal is to become the strongest in the universe. In the Namekusei Saga, Namek, however you call it, Vegeta is still a great warrior, but he starts to change a bit when he joins Goku and others to fight against common enemies like Frieza. Although he is still motivated by revenge, he begins to realize that there are enemies much stronger than him. They begin to mark his personal growth. After the Freezer Saga, Vegeta goes through a crisis when he discovers that Goku has surpassed him in becoming a Super Saiyan. This disappoints him with the idea of becoming stronger, leading him to train very intensely, almost to the point of destroying himself. The most important point is of his evolution comes in the Majin Buu Saga, which is the Majin Buu when he makes one of the most important and exciting decisions of his story, his sacrifice. After allowing himself to be manipulated by Babidi by becoming Majin Vegeta, he realizes how much he has changed. In an act of redemption, he sacrifices his life for his family and for Earth, demonstrating his love for Bulma and his son Trunks. It is stronger than his pride or his desire for power. He even earns Piccolo's respect. This moment not only shows that Vegeta has grown emotionally, but also that he has grown as a human being. He recognizes that there are things more important than being the strongest, something he would never have considered at the beginning of the series. Although he did not manage to defeat Buu, his sacrifice is one of the most heroic and emotional moments in all of Dragon Ball. In Dragon Ball Super, Vegeta continues to evolve. Although he still wants to surpass and defeat Goku, he appears much more balanced. He is a more complex character who remains competitive but also shows a more sensitive and protective side, especially with his family. One of the most important changes in Super is that he accepts that he doesn't always have to be the strongest. He trains with the gods and becomes an incredible warrior, but his love for his family and his sense of responsibility towards Earth become more important than his pride. For example, in the Tournament of Power, he fights not only for himself but also for the survival of his entire universe. This is where a conflict begins to arise within him, his Saiyan pride versus the growing respect, although he doesn't admit it, towards Goku. The rivalry with Goku is a key part of his identity, but he also starts to show that he cares about protecting the Earth, even if initially he does it just to prove he is better. The development of Bakugo's character in My Hero Academia is a topic that generates a lot of debate and that many people feel frustrated about because they think his growth for some is slow or contradictory or that it doesn't have. There are several reasons why his evolution may seem less satisfying or even incoherent to some people, which makes him so hated by much of the fandom, and even the Crosby of the fandom. Although he seems to change at certain moments, his transformation often appears superficial. For example, in some scenes he appears regretful, but he continues to maintain the same aggressive and explosive attitude in his daily life. This makes it seem like the character is not truly changing on an emotional level, or that his growth is not as significant compared to other characters like Midoriya or Todoroki Shishoda's, whose changes are more consistent and profound. Throughout the series, even when Bakugo has moments where he reflects or seems to evolve, he remains very loud and aggressive in many situations. This aggressiveness, this constant aggressiveness, is seen as something that doesn't change enough as part of what makes a true evolution noticeable. Many are frustrated because although he starts to show respect for his peers in a certain way and in his own way, especially for Midoriya, he always seems to revert to his violent and aggressive attitude, which contradicts the supposed emotional growth. Compared to other characters, Bakugo's development is intentionally super slow. This can be seen as a way to keep his character authentic without rushing his evolution, but it can also be quite frustrating as someone to see faster and clearer changes, while characters like Todoroki and Midoriya have more evident growth. He seems trapped in a repetitive cycle of pride, aggressiveness, and small moments of regret. One of the main problems is that sometimes Bakugo seems to make progress, but out of nowhere he regresses, which makes his development feel unconscious. For example, after acknowledging his mistakes in the battle against Midoriya, he continues to act aggressively and arrogantly. This contradiction can be quite costly because it gives the impression that Bakugo hasn't learned important lessons instead of showing sustained growth. Although for me, his true evolution was when they killed him. That's when he learned to be good, I feel. Although he has moments of vulnerability, like when he admits he feels guilty for what happened to All Might, those moments are few and often overshadowed by his strong personality, unlike Midoriya, who constantly shows emotions and doubts. He rarely lets others see his more vulnerable side. This creates, in a way, an emotional barrier between the character and the audience. Another factor affecting his development is that he seems trapped in the same conflicting dynamics, especially with Midoriya. Their relationship progresses, but very slowly, and their interactions remain based on conflict, which frustrates those hoping to see a bigger change in their friendship. In a way, if this can be called friendship. He continues to see Midoriya as a rival and remains angry about his progress, even though he has acknowledged his value several times. This repetition of behaviors creates the feeling that nothing is progressing. Part of why many dislike Bakugo comes from the comparison with other characters who have shown more interesting and rapid growth. For example, Endeavor outshines him, without a doubt. And that's even though he did worse things than Bakugo. He has a more defined redemption arc, gradually reconciling with his past and improving his relationships with his entire family. Also, at the beginning of the series, Bakugo is almost completely indifferent to the feelings of others, especially with Midoriya, although he eventually recognizes him as a worthy rival and shows some respect towards him. His initial behavior is so negative. We have trouble forgiving or accepting him even when he starts to show signs of change. The rivalry between Goku and Vegeta is one of the most interesting and complicated in Dragon Ball. It is very important for Vegeta's development. As a character, this relationship has a profound impact on his growth and is much more than a simple competition of strength. The relationship between these two warriors changes, showing a mix of competition, respect, frustration, and even camaraderie. When Vegeta and Goku fight for the first time in the Saiyan Saga, Vegeta is convinced that as the Prince of the Saiyans, he must be the strongest warrior. His pride as a member of royalty and his arrogance make him underestimate Goku, who at that time was just a low-class warrior. Vegeta cannot accept that someone of low class is as strong as he is, which fuels his competitiveness, but he also begins to feel a silent respect towards Goku. The rivalry between the two becomes more intense in the Android and Cell saga. Surpassing Goku, whom he calls Kakaroto, becomes a main goal. At this point, the relationship between them deepens. It's no longer just about being the strongest, but Goku represents for Vegeta a symbol of personal improvement, as he is a warrior who always breaks his own limits, which awakens in Vegeta a mix of admiration and envy. Although he would never easily admit it, he greatly respects Goku's ability to improve and face impossible challenges. This also motivates him to keep training and try to surpass himself. However, this respect is accompanied by frustration, as he feels that no matter how much he trains and strives, Goku always finds a way to stay one step ahead. In Dragon Ball Super, the relationship between the two continues to evolve. Although there was a balance, the rivalry does not disappear as Further changes form. Now they see each other as friendly rivals who motivate each other to become stronger. Vegeta no longer feels the same resentment towards Goku. Now he accepts that they both push each other to improve. A clear example of this is when they train together under Whis' orders. Here their relationship is almost like that of companions or brothers, training together, giving each other advice. And although Vegeta still wants to be stronger than Goku, he does it in a healthier and less exclusive way. There are moments when they fight together as a team, like in the Tournament of Power, where they fight for survival and for their universe. He shows that he feels a responsibility towards Goku, and although he continues trying to be the best, he recognizes that they are stronger when they work together. This mutual respect grows even more when Vegeta starts to see
Goku not only as a rival but also as a friend and companion who has helped him become a better warrior. Bakugo's aggressive behavior from the beginning of My Hero Academia made it one of the most notable and problematic traits of his personality. This makes some people view him so negatively, and here I explain why it is difficult to empathize with him. Bakugo's relationship with Midoriya is important in the story. Since they were children, Bakugo has been very violent and cruel to Midoriya. Despite Midoriya admiring him and wanting to be his friend, Bakugo treats him harshly and accuses him. He always called him Deku, a nickname he gave the meaning of useless, and told him he would never be a hero, even going so far as to suggest he should commit suicide. The verbal and physical abuse of Bakugo towards Midoriya is seen by many as very cruel, and Bakugo's lack of remorse at the beginning worsens this negative image. Although one might think that Bakugo saw Midoriya as a reminder of his own insecurities, this does not justify his abusive treatment towards someone who at the time was not a threat to him. Bakugo has an explosive personality that is reflected in his quirk, which is called the explosion. He is always yelling, insulting, and belittling those around him, which creates tensions with his peers. He is not only verbally aggressive but also acts violently when something or someone bothers him. His pride leads him to believe he is better than others, and anything he considers a threat or superiority enrages him. His arrogance also makes him difficult to empathize with. He believes himself to be a prodigy due to the strength of his gift, which leads him to disdain those who are not as powerful as he is. This attitude emotionally isolates him from his peers, and although his aggressiveness as he gets angry at any sign of vulnerability or competition, he tends to use violence as an immediate response, even in situations with his friends like Kirishima. It is common to see him shout or threaten. This reliance on strength and violence reinforces the idea that he cannot handle his emotions maturely. When something doesn't go his way, his reaction is to attack or explode with rage. Bakugo has major problems managing his emotions. His constant anger and frustration make him difficult to deal with and make him seem childish because he cannot channel his energy productively. When he feels he is losing control, whether due to a defeat or Midoriya's growth, his response is always to be aggressive, both verbally and physically. This distances him from other characters and the viewers. The only ones who like him are the girls, as he does not show clear emotional growth. For many Pongado anime, Bakugo's aggressiveness and lack of emotional self-control make it difficult to empathize with him. Although other characters have flaws, like Todoroki with his coldness or Midoriya being so tearful and the insecurity he carries, they show more interesting growth and develop relationships based on understanding and support. Dos asuntos at a civil tasistan. In contrast, the Muslim remains hostile, making him less likable to the audience despite his great talent and potential as a hero. For these reasons, both have been compared, but you can share your point of view. Why don't you watch more of my videos? I fear some of them will interest you. What are you waiting for?